everybody hear me on this mic in the back? I don't know. No? Good. Got my mic. I'm not live, I don't think. Am I live yet in the back? No? It's better that way. I'll turn this one on just in case. Just in case. All right. Okay then. We're going to get started. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little intimidated. I don't get intimidated by much. It's the strangest thing. I can preach a sermon and no intimidation whatsoever to this crowd of people. But to put me in a Bible class setting with an adult crowd, I don't know what it is. I get a little intimidated by it. I don't know. I guess it's just a different format. I'm not just up there speaking with no interruption. I guess it throws me off sometimes to have discussion be interrupted. I don't know. I guess it's the fear of the unexpected. What's going to be said? How can I respond to that? Do I need to respond to that? And so, and there's some great minds in this room. I'm not going to lie. As I looked around the room, there's some great minds in here, many much wiser than me, so it intimidates me a little bit. So I'm just going to be honest and upfront that I'm starting out a little nervous, so just bear with me. We're talking about a subject. I don't know if anyone has been notified, if anybody knew what was going on in the auditorium starting this quarter. But for the winter quarter, what we're going to be doing in here is discussing Christian ethics. And you're going to say, well, we've already had a quarter's worth of a class on Christian ethics. We have. But we're going to take a different approach. The last time we discussed this, it was, I'd say, about a year ago. We started this, and we had different speakers come and talk about different subjects. We had Richard and Oscar and Joe and Doug Lee and many others get up and speak about certain things like health or finances or getting things in order, preparation before we pass from this life, certain things like that, those type of ethical matters and decisions. We're going to the other end of the spectrum. We're actually going to discuss Christian ethics and our role in this culture, our role in this world as it stands right now. This is going to be a very hard subject. Many in here are going to be stirred. I'm just going to be upfront and honest with you. We're going to be stirred up a little bit. We're going to discuss controversial subjects that some of us in here may be divided on. Things that are going on in the culture right now that we find hard to discuss. I think we are not obligated. I think we have an opportunity to discuss those as Christian people, as brothers and sisters, and do it in a peaceful way, and do it in a way that we can edify, that we can encourage, and we can be educated by these things. So I just want you to know up front, tonight I'm not going to get into any of that. But as we go into this, we're going to decide, as we live in this culture, how do we ethically live within it? How do we ethically make decisions within it? Now, what things do we support? What things do we need to stand against? Just to give you a for instance, one of the things we will discuss later in the quarter, abortion. We're going to discuss ethically where should we stand on abortion. Why does it matter? Why should we discuss it? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about marriage principles. We're going to talk about things that are accepted and tolerated socially that we should not, and discuss why. And we're going to talk about that. And it's going to get tough. My feathers are ruffled at times. Yours are going to be as well. I don't come in here seeking to stir anybody up except to stir you up for the truth. I want us all to grow. I want us all to be educated. So much prayer has been put into this, but I'm asking much prayer in response and patience, respect, compassion, because I can promise you I'll give you the same. Because not all of us are going to see eye to eye. Not all of us are going to agree on everything. And so it's going to require respect and patience and compassion for each other's personal stances, and for us to collectively seek the truth and discover why we should agree or disagree, or why we should stand for it or stand against it. So I just want to give you a little heads up before we begin this, because I think as studying this personally, this matter of Christian ethics, and I've stated this publicly from the pulpit here before, our culture has made a turn ethically in the wrong direction. And we are constantly speaking against it. but we are constantly failing to recognize that we have a large part to do with it. We have a large part that we've played in making it the world that it is. We as Christian people, whether we have condoned certain things that we shouldn't, or whether we've stood against things without love and compassion or whatever, and we've separated ourselves from people, we have misconstrued the word tolerance. We have allowed culture to change us and to I guess mold us in a different way that we're changing our worldview a little bit. We're changing our beliefs in certain ways. And we're going to talk about belief and what is actually belief. One of the things that we're going to come to realize is that belief is really just a matter of just personal preference. Now, you can believe what you want to believe and how you want to believe it. There are many of us, we could talk about Church of Christ beliefs among all 50 of us in here. And I can guarantee you we're going to disagree in some areas because we've come to believe and to tolerate the fact that I'll believe how I want to, you believe how you want to. There you go. There's your for instance of how we've allowed culture to change us as we've done it in the church. We've allowed ourselves to do it in the church. Is to say, well, I won't judge you, you don't judge me, you believe that, I'll just firmly disagree, and I'll believe what I want to believe without collectively trying to seek the truth together. So that's where we stand into this. So Christian ethics. I'm not using a PowerPoint. I'm of the opinion PowerPoint is a very good tool, and it's a necessary tool, but oftentimes with a subject matter like this and its nature to be controversial, if I were to put a PowerPoint up and something you read you disagreed with, you would check out because you're going to stare at that PowerPoint screen and read it over and over and over again and get hotter and hotter and hotter and wait on your opportunity to just rip me apart. So I'm not going to allow you that opportunity. So I don't want anybody to check out and be stirred up, and so where they just basically give up on the conversation because something they read on a screen they don't agree with or they don't understand. So that's why we're not going to use PowerPoint during this. So yes, I don't want to intimidate anyone else, but this is going to be a hard subject for us, but I think it's necessary for us in the church. And the first couple of sessions, you'll notice I have a notebook, no Bible up here with me. First couple of sessions, we're not going to open the Bible. I think before we get to that point, we need to lay some groundwork. We're going to set the stage a little bit, do some introductory type material, and then we'll get into looking at Christian principles and where they're stated in the Bible. Preston and I were discussing this earlier today, that a lot of times one of the ways that we have failed to connect with the world is we use the Bible as our reference. We use the Word of God as our reference in our defense a lot of times without making the connection practically in the world where they can understand it. People in the world that are worldly and have no connection with Jesus Christ do not care what the Bible says. And we can use it as our defense all we want, but we cannot connect with them if that's our only defense. Let's use abortion, as I said earlier, as an example. If we go and we use the Bible as our only defense against it without trying to use practical application for them to understand it, they're never going to get it because they don't care what it says. And so that's where we need to lay some introductory groundwork. We need to try and attack this from a practical standpoint and a biblical standpoint, and that's what we're going to do. If you were to attend any funeral for any random person, no matter their background, their faith, their sexual preference, whatever it is, just a random person's funeral without the phrase, they're in a better place, what then would, in your opinion, be the most common phrase you will hear at any funeral that they will say about the person they're referencing? Boom, right there. There it is. He was a good man. She was a good woman. They were a good person. Regardless if they actually were, that's it. They could have been the most heinous person that ever lived, and at their funeral, their eulogy will include, he was a good man. Because there are a lot of people that will still believe those people were good people. Even those people will want that said, is that our innate desire, whatever it is, no matter the actions that we live out in our life, we want to be considered good. We want to be considered good. Well, why are you talking about this? Ethically, without a standard, without a moral code, good cannot be defined. Think about that. Think about the world we live in right now and the standards that we have set, the moral standards, and how misconstrued it is, and how it's like a plate of spaghetti of everybody's beliefs. How can good be defined? Where's the standard? What's the code? What do we really live by? And that's what we're dealing with. That's what our children are dealing with now, is they don't know what to believe. But we all have this innate desire to be considered good. Preston and I were talking about this earlier today too. I'm going to reference that a lot. He and I speak a lot about a lot of things. God gave us the ability to know truth. He gave us the ability to know right and wrong. Regardless of if we know Him or if we know His Word, we are created with the ability to know good and right and wrong. Everyone is. Regardless of the actions, regardless of their raising, everyone knows right and wrong. Everyone knows how to separate those things. And we all want to be considered good. At the end of our lives, regardless of what we've done, it's like the completion of our human fulfillment. If I can be labeled as good, then I feel like I've done what I need to do. Would you agree or disagree with that? I think everybody would agree with that. Philosopher, I'm going to botch his name. I even checked to see if I'd pronounce it right. Philosopher Albert Camus. Yeah, he's French. I don't know French. He said this: "A man without ethics is a wild beast loosed upon the world." A man without ethics is a wild beast loosed upon the world. I want you to take that imagery and look at it for just a second. And we see this happening in the world. A man without an ethical code, a man that does not know ethics, is a wild beast loosed upon the world. It's chaos. It's dangerous. It can be a horrific situation here. And so that's what we're going to discuss as Christians. We need an ethical code, and we live by a different ethical code than most people. Ethics can be described as the way things ought to be. As the way things ought to be. There has to be a standard. And we talked about that there's this spaghetti plate of different beliefs and standards. People have their own standards. We're creating that, and we're going to get into that next week. It's called moral relativism, and we're going to look at that next week. Through this, we need to set this groundwork. A civilized society cannot function properly unless it has concern for moral values. A civilized society, whether it's a church, a nation, a family. Think about this. We're not just talking about society as a whole. We're talking about the church at Martyr Street. We're talking about your family in general. A civilized society cannot function properly without concern for moral values. Fairness, honesty, compassion, justice, discipline. We cannot function the way God intended unless we have concern and unless we practice these moral values. And that's just to name a few. There are many others that we could name. It also helps establish personal accountability. That's one of the things that I rarely hear of today is personal accountability. We hear of it in the workplace pretty much, and that's about one of the only places. Families have lost the motivation to hold each other, whether it's spouses or kids, accountable. We see it in the sports world like crazy. They can do whatever they want to do. They don't have to be accountable for anything. As long as they bring the team a lot of money, it doesn't matter what they do. There is no accountability in the world. We had a discussion about this in one of my classes that I'm taking the other day, and it was why pursue moral value? Why pursue being good? Why be good? And I said that to the class. I said, why would anyone want to be good? Looking at the world the way it is now, why would anybody want to be good? Because good isn't promoted. Good doesn't get put on the TV. Good doesn't make money. But selfishness and sinfulness and dishonesty and cheating, those things get published. Those things make people money. Those things get books written about. Those are the things that people want to do. So why be good? This is the world we're dealing with right now. This is why we need to talk about it. It's because good is no longer the thing that people want to pursue. We want to be considered good at the end of our life, but we don't want to pursue it as an action, as a principle in our life. Ethics give direction to our life. They can answer right and wrong. Those are the things that it helps do. It helps us with responsibility. It helps us establish our worldview. And those are the reasons we're going to look at this. I want all of us during this quarter to reemphasize and refocus what true living is, living ethically. What is Christian ethics? How do I live within it? How can I apply it to my life? Am I doing it? Am I not doing it? Can I do it better? I want us all to basically do an internal investigation, a reality check. Who are we? Who am I? Am I helping the cause, or am I part of the problem? What can I do better? Why am I saying that? Why am I saying that we need to do that? Because we've already talked about the culture and how it influences everything. What is culture, really? Culture is basically the compilation of beliefs and understandings of the people that live within it. Think about that. The culture that we live in now. Culture is what is made up of the beliefs and understandings of the people that live and function within it. Well, what is our culture? We have no idea what our culture is right now. We have no idea what direction we're going in right now. So how can we establish ethics? How can we establish a moral code? The beliefs are crazy out there right now. I always have a little bit of fun talking with teenagers about different religions and different things people believe in. And there's this one that makes me laugh all the time. There's a group of people out there that believe in this religious figure called the flying spaghetti monster. I mean, seriously, if I want to believe in something, I'm going to believe in some other person, one of these major religions in the world, if I'm not going to believe in God. Why in the world would I decide all of a sudden I'm going to buy into this culture of believing into a flying spaghetti monster? Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah, they are. Yes, yeah, they're trying to be funny. Speaking of that, though, I was also going to mention this. Preston and I have talked about this. There is a church in Atlanta, and the name of this church is the Church for People Who Don't Do Church. We want to get together in a setting. I don't know what they do. I want to go. I want to see what it is. Church for people who don't do church. And this is a culture that is taking the world by storm. Is that we can believe in anything we want to believe in, and as long as I believe it with all my heart, then it needs to be accepted. Because this is who I am, and I'm an individual, and I have my right to my faith and my speech, and I have all of these freedoms, and it needs to be accepted. And therefore, we don't violate that. We don't talk about truth, because that's your right. You believe what you want to believe, and I'll believe what I want to believe. And therefore, we've stopped talking about truth as much as we can. To hear some of these people talk about their beliefs or their stances on certain cultural views, I think the word has been used a lot, especially in my study and some of the interaction I've had with this, is the word incoherent. To listen to these people talk and to listen to the culture in general talk about these beliefs and pushing these certain agendas and getting them to tell you why, it's like having a conversation with someone that just got out of surgery, that's drugged up, they're groggy, they probably see 35,000 different people, and it's like, tell me why you believe what you believe. It's as incoherent as that. I know all of you have had a family member, or you yourself have been videoed as this groggy surgery patient that they embarrass you by video and your incoherent babblings for the next 3 hours. My papa just had surgery like a week ago, and I made fun of him pretty good because they said, what's the last thing you remember? And all I saw and all I heard was him doing this. He was trying to explain something. That's what it is right now, is they can tell you what they believe. Nobody has any idea why. Why do you push this certain cultural agenda? Because that's just what I believe. Let's be real. Conservatives and liberals alike. Certain agendas, certain cultural worldviews, we support them and we push them, and we have no idea what they mean. We have no idea what they're about, and we have no idea why we support it. But that's what my candidate supports. So I support it too. What's it mean? I have no idea. That's the world we live in right now. That's the world that we're raising our kids and grandkids in right now. Is teaching them to just believe it with all your heart, and as long as you believe it with all your heart, then it's truth. And that's where we're at. I actually thought about this as I was putting this together today. Many of you like the show The Walking Dead. I don't really get into it much because there's nothing appealing to me about zombies or anything like that. But to each his own. The Walking Dead. But as I was thinking about that, we truly are the Walking Dead in this world. We are. We are the walking dead, as there is no real purpose in the culture. There is no real purpose in life right now except to devour one another and feeding our own bellies, our own desires. We're walking around like zombies looking for our next desire to feed our belly, no matter who we destroy and devour in the process. I felt that was pretty accurate, that we are the walking dead. We are not zombies, but we are when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to truth, when it comes to a cultural worldview. I'm going to give you some examples. You want proof of this? I want to share some things with you that I came across. Yes, please, go ahead. You're messing me up. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. That's it. That's the way I feel. That's the way I feel. And that's what we hear more often than not, especially with our young people, our teenagers, our young adults now. Tell me why you believe that. Because that's the way I feel. That's the only reason. Reasoning has lost its motivation now. We have no reason to give my stance on that. I don't have to give you that as long as I feel that way. Listen to some of these things. And these are studies that have been done. You want to talk about us being the walking dead and devouring one another to feed our own bellies, that there is no moral God, there is no cultural, ethical standard. Cheating in schools has substantially increased. There was some education experts that went around the nation, did some studies, that cheating has increased substantially even with the teachers. Teachers themselves now, and this is part of even the curriculum, is that let's give them the answer. Let's give them the cheat sheet. Let's give them the test and let them see it. Cheating has increased so much that nobody works for anything. And if I have to study for it, then I'm going to find a better way of getting it than putting the work into it. Cheating has helped to decay the culture that we live in. That's just the tip of the iceberg here. Lying is a common practice now. And you're like, well, lying? Why are you talking about this? Lying is a common practice. They were referencing one of the things in the courtroom. You go under oath, and people that will go under oath will still lie. The cover-ups, the lies that are used to cover up these scandals are there's more effort and more energy that goes into that than actually defending the person and actually talking about the scandal itself. We will have to build all of these lies around it to cover it up. Lying has become an epidemic, even in Christian circles. We will eat each other alive over something that we disagree with, over hurt feelings, and we will lie at the drop of a hat. I know teenagers. I know adults and teenagers that are compulsive liars. They will look you right in the eye and lie to you and never blink an eye. Never have a handshake, never have a raising heartbeat. They can lie to you and believe it as if it were truth from day one. That's the society we've created. Those are the types of families we've created. Those are the things we need to be looking at personally right now. Am I contributing to this epidemic? And gossiping or whatever it is, that lying has become so rampant in the world, in the home even. Because of this, the cheating and the lying, theft has increased significantly. The FBI estimated, this is a 2013 study, the FBI estimated that retailers across the nation lose approximately $30 billion a year to theft. $30 billion a year to theft. That's the society we live in. Where is the ethical code? Where is the standard that we have set? And let me share this, and we're going to get to this, and I'm going to keep saying it over and over and over again. These are learned habits. People are learning how to do these things. They don't just wake up one day and think, I'm going to steal something. They've learned this from somewhere, whether it be a parent, a sibling, a friend, a grandparent, a cousin, a close person in their life, whatever it is. They're learning these things. $30 billion a year. I was floored by that, to theft. And we wonder why our taxes are so high. So, because they're trying to make up for all that stuff that people have stolen. Drug use has become so rampant now, and we can see that right now. The drug use, the alcohol abuse in this world has increased so much. So much, in fact, that instead of trying to continue the fight against the drug war, we have now, in this past year's election, we have now put out bills to legalize drugs because we're losing the fight on the drugs. We're losing the fight on the war against them. And so instead of continuing to put money and energy and effort into that, let's find a positive cause to legalize these things. And let's make some money off of it. Moonshining, moonshining, drugs, all those things. Why are we letting those people get their cut? Let's make it legal. Let's get our cut off of it, and let's stop spending all the money to fight it. That's where we're at in our society. Instead of taking a stand against immoral things, let's just, if you can't beat them, join them. That's where we've become, is to that stance. So we're actually legalizing these things and pushing these things to make it okay for people to do these things. Pornography dominates right now. How many of you are on the internet at any point today? Okay. We all use the internet every single day. If you are to look at the statistics, pornography takes up the majority of the internet traffic daily. Of all the internet use that happens on a daily basis, over 50% of it is used for pornography. For whatever it is. Whatever kind of pornography that they're into. That's what it's used for. We are in a culture that is decaying morally because there is no standard. And because of that, there has been an increase in sexual assault. There's been an increase in child abuse, in human trafficking, and pedophilia. It is rampant, widespread. You would not believe, probably, if you were to go look it up, you would not believe the pedophiles. You would not believe the kind of human trafficking that happens. Becoming a father now, I can't help but think about that. Yesterday we were getting our pictures taken somewhere for Mackenzie, and this guy drove up. We were at Naval Live Oaks. Okay, so unless you're coming to see the place or do something there, you really have no reason to be there. And this guy drove up and he sat real still in his car and he was on his phone, and then he sat there for about 10 minutes and he left. And I'm like, the thing that went off in my mind is, he's here seeking somebody. He's here looking for an opportunity. I didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. That's just me as a father. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, here we go. Somebody's here seeking an opportunity to do this. Interstate 10 is one of the most used roadways for human trafficking, if you didn't know that. And this is the kind of culture that we are living in. This is the kind of culture, in some ways, that we're condoning by not taking a stance against these things. You've seen probably the movie Taken. Okay, that is kind of emphasized and built up on a Hollywood scale, but these things happen when people travel. These things happen here all the time. There was a friend of mine on Facebook the other day. She was with her daughter in Target and said a man kept trying to proposition her to talk to her constantly and followed her through the store. These things are happening in our backyard right now. And it's an increase of this moral decay because of pornography, sexual abuse. We were talking about how there is no standard, and that all of these heinous acts are publicized so much now that people don't care what they do. Athletes. How many athletes have been just blasted on the media for sexually assaulting a girlfriend or a wife or someone else? They don't lose their job. They actually get a bigger contract because they bring the team more money. Why be good? Why follow an ethical standard when I can better myself by being bad and doing evil things? Something for us to consider right now as we think about this. One of the other things that was mentioned in this study is the fact that two-parent households are now the minority in this country. The minority in this country, two-parent households. That the majority of our children grow up in a house that they do not have a mother and father both present, leading to the next one of an increased every single year of teen pregnancy or children that are had out of wedlock even by young adults and other adults. And these things are celebrated. And I think we can even look at ourselves. Some of us have experienced such things, whether it be in our family, friends, or whatever. These things happen in churches across the board where there's a teen pregnancy or a child had out of wedlock, and instead of trying to surround that person with encouragement, but also surround them with truth, we celebrate the sin. We throw parties and showers for people who live in sin. I told you it was going to get rough. I told you it was going to touch a nerve. We do that. Why be good? Why stay abstinent until I'm married when I can do what I do, and if I end up with the result of being pregnant, they're just going to throw me a party anyway. They're just going to surround me and give me everything I need to do this anyway, so why follow an ethical standard? Are we contributing to the part of the problem? And this is why we're studying. Why Christian ethics? What is Christian ethics? And we're going to discuss that as Christian people. Where should we stand on certain things? Even if it challenges us to our very core, even if it happens within our own families. Some of you may have members of your family or close friends that are homosexual, and you've contemplated changing your stance on that because of that person. You know, certain things. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, it is. That's it. You're right. Yes. Yeah. Step one is this, and that's where we're going in this study of why Christian ethics, is that we have to establish an ethical code within our own self first. We can't reach it because we're part of it. We can't combat the problem because we are part of the problem. And we don't want to combat the problem because then we have to say we have a problem and that we have to stop the things that we're doing. And that's the dilemma we're faced with. That's the dilemma we're faced with. I was telling the teenagers the other day that the most common thing I hear with trying to convert people to the gospel is that when I give my life to Jesus, all my fun has to stop. That's the picture we've painted of Christianity. That's the picture we've painted for them as unbelievers, is the fact that when you give your life to Jesus, the fun stops. The buck stops here. Everything gets serious and monotonous and boring. Have we painted the picture that Christianity isn't the freeing life that God meant it for it to be? Are we truly open to the fact that Jesus has saved us and we live that out in our life? Something for us to consider. This is the last stat I'm going to give you. In the late 1970s, the prison population in America was 230,000. Anybody want to give a go what it is right now? It has 2 and 3 in it. 2.3 million people. It has increased tenfold during my lifetime. During the time I've been alive, our prison population has increased tenfold. Why? Because there is no ethical standard. There is no code. Have we been a part of that problem? The co-founder of Prison Fellowship, a guy that spent 35 years in the prisons after he himself were in prison. You probably know this guy. He was part of the presidential cabinet with Richard Nixon, Chuck Colson. He said this, after establishing this and working in this ministry for so long, the Prison Fellowship, he said, it's an inescapable consequence of neglecting moral training. So what's the problem? See, people say, well, Chuck, you've worked in the prisons, you've interviewed all of these people, you've interviewed all the prisoners, what's the problem? He said it's an inescapable consequence of neglecting moral training. We're in an ethical mess because of it. We're all paying the price, and we're all pointing fingers at other people when the real problem is all of us aren't addressing the need for character formation in our lives and the lives of our children. Drop the mic, walk away. Boom. He hit it. I think he hit it on the head here. That's what he gathered by interviewing hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of interviewing these prisoners. He said it's not even about their raising. It's not 2.3 million people that have had bad home lives. These are people that have had bad home lives. These are people that have been raised with a golden spoon in their mouth and everything in between. It's the fact that there was no character formation in their life, regardless of who they were or where they came from, that the common denominator was the moral training in the home was not present. So let's bring that back. Let's rein it in right now to culture. So, yes. 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 Yes, very much so. We see the lower tier of people in the world as being the problem when there are many in the upper class that are just as heinous and just as evil. And we fail to see that. And everywhere in between. Everywhere in between. He said it's not where you came from. It's not the amount of money you had. It's not the raising. It's not the education. Because a lot of these people are educated. Some of these people have bachelor and master's degrees. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that he said the common denominator was there was no moral training in their home. So let's reemphasize that again. In their home. In their home. Not in their churches. Not in their schools. In their home. And he reemphasizes this. Later, he says that ethics cannot be taught in one dimension of their life. It cannot be taught in one dimension of their life. It must be taught in every dimension. In the home, in the church, in schools, in the workplace, in their extracurricular activities. That all of these ethical standards must be taught and observed in every area of their life. But they're getting it, some are getting it in the home, and they're not a part of a religious affiliation. Some of them are getting it at church, and they're not getting it at home. And they don't get it in extracurricular activities, and they're certainly in certain areas not getting it in the schools. And he's like, it starts in the home. First and foremost, it's got to start in the home, and it branches outward from there. How many in here are parents or grandparents right now? Raise your hand. We've got a job to do. We've got a job to do. Are we helping to alleviate the problem, or are we contributing to it based upon how we're raising our kids? Are we setting an ethical, moral standard in the home? And not just on things of sexual promiscuity and alcohol and all of these things that we see as bad, but lying and gossiping and doing things with excellence and doing your best at certain things and not taking the easy road out, not being mediocre. How many of us are teaching our kids that? To not be mediocre in life and just do the most that you can to get by, but to live your life with excellence in every area. Those are certain things that contribute to this problem, is that we've taught people to be mediocre. And so we have so many people that aren't working. We have so many people that aren't even looking to work because being mediocre is okay and we'll take care of you. People will take care of me. That's part of the problem that we've had, that we've contributed to. So, this is a learned habit. All of these things are learned habits. The Colson fellow even said this, and this is where I'm going to end. He said, society as a whole, us included in the church, society as a whole is failing to teach children the principle of integrity, taking pride in what they do and doing it with excellence, and to put those principles into action themselves as adults. Putting those principles into action. How many of you have ever been told by anyone, especially a parent, do as I say, not as I do? Anybody ever been told that before? Do as I say, not as I do? Yeah, that's kind of the attitude that we take in certain areas of our life. Well, Dad, you said don't do this, but I just heard you do it. Son, do as I say, not as I do. I'm an adult. That doesn't work. That doesn't work because they're going to be like, oh, when I'm an adult, I can change my life too and be a jerk. I can do that. I can talk to anybody the way I want to talk to them, but I can't do that as a child. They are watching our children right now, just to focus in on that area right now, as we're raising them to help alleviate these problems. Our children are watching us more so than they are listening to us, because it's what we do that defines us. I think that was a quote in the Batman movie. I impressed myself. So, in a Batman movie, it's not who you are underneath, but what you do that defines you. So what are you doing? What are we doing ethically? Have we set a standard in our home? Have we set a standard in our workplace? Have we set a standard in our extended families. As educators, many of you in here are educators, have you set that standard? Regardless of what they make you do or not do or whatever, you know. So, yep, I went over a little bit. Thank you for being a part of this. I hope you'll stick with me, and I didn't scare any of you away. So come back next week, and we'll get into some heavier stuff.